Hello and welcome to As Built, the podcast from Graphic Machine about architecture firms, buildings, and how both get built. I am your co-host, Patience Jones. With me is
Brian Jones.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. Today we're talking about too many meetings.
All the meetings.
Blurg. So many meetings. So what we're going to talk about today is how to build your firm and keep things going without destroying both your schedule and your will by scheduling and agreeing to so many meetings.
And meetings have a way of proliferating.
Yeah.
So it's how do you stop them in their tracks a little bit?
Yeah, there's definitely, it can happen really quickly without even realizing it, that your firm suddenly has a meeting culture where everything requires a meeting. And those meetings require follow-up meetings and smaller
Breakouts.
group meetings
Yes.
and recap meetings. And yeah, before you know it, that's your entire day is meetings. And some people, depending on what their job title is and what their role is, love that. Because whatever other work they're responsible for, it just gets kicked down the road.
It's a pause button.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I couldn't get that done because I had to go to these 12 meetings. But for firm leaders, that work doesn't hit pause. It just means your day is longer, your weekends are shot, and you're in meeting hell. So how do you know when you have too many meetings?
I think when you, depending on your role, but like when you look at your calendar and you see nothing but meetings or the substantial amount of your week is spent in meetings, you have to wonder, like, are all of these necessary and essential? And, if I could make a trim to just one this week, what would it be? And, that's kind of like my litmus test for this is that.
A friend and colleague who's much wiser than I am said that the way her organization looks at meetings is, what can we do? Can we only do when we are together? Those are the things that meetings get saved for. If we can solve a problem over email or chat or at the water cooler, if it's a question that can be answered, if it's a document that can be read, we don't need to have a meeting for it. The meetings are solely for those things that have to be done with this certain group of people, either in the room or on the call.
So there's lots of articles that have been written about this for sure. But, one of the things that can be a signal is too large of a meeting where there are so many people involved where either a number of people are going to have to present or there's a lot of feedback opportunities. That can be a signal that meeting is not necessarily all that productive. The other is that it's a recurring meeting that has just gotten started and has continued without question.
And the meetings that don't really have stated goals, it's like, well, we have a meeting because we had to have a meeting, because it was already scheduled, or because we've always had one, or because, we felt like we needed to tell everybody what we were working on. Well, you've always had one isn't a good answer for anything.
No.
And if you wanted to tell people what you're working on, is there a different way that you could have communicated that? Could you have sent out an email? Could you have sent out a little presentation? Maybe you can't for any number of reasons. And then, okay, fine. You have the meeting. Is the meeting tailored to the shortest possible time that you need and with only the essential people? I hate on like Google Calendar and Microsoft Calendar and everything, the default time windows, because everybody defaults to like an hour-long meeting.
Yeah.
So rarely do you actually need an hour for most of what's covered in meetings.
And people's exhaustion is real. And that is an important note on that point.
Yeah. Well, and if people know, think back to like when you were in school and you had that class that you had to take and the professor was awful and you kind of knew for yourself that was going to be the time when you just went in and sort of glazed over and took a nap with your eyes open. That's how people come to see meetings where nothing happens and nothing gets done and nothing gets decided. And another friend, I'm so lucky to know all these wise people. She retired from Sprint years ago, but she said, I never had a meeting or went to a meeting where the agenda wasn't circulated beforehand. Because if there's no agenda, then it's a free for all
Yeah.
and you don't know when you're done. You shouldn't be done with the meeting because 60 minutes have passed. You should be done with the meeting because you've gotten through what you needed to get through and you've gotten the decisions made. And so saying on that agenda too, these are the things we have to get done before we leave these meetings, or these are the things that have to be decided before the meeting ends. And you'll be amazed when you tell people, we can be done with this meeting as soon as we get through these things. They are happy to get through those things and have more time left in their day.
And if they aren't happy to have that time, that may signal another issue. But
Yeah.
I would say you're bringing up a really good point, which is I would take it maybe even a step further that when you have the agenda items, maybe go as far as assigning an amount of time that you're going to spend on that
Mm-hmm.
agenda item
It's a
because
good
it can be
idea.
easy, even within the most well meaning group of people, for a topic to come up and it spirals out of control. And so understanding that this is going to be a short or a medium conversation length is really important so that people can understand this has already been predetermined that this is how long we're spending on this. And try and aim to end early if at all possible, because nothing is worse than, going long.
Well, that's the thing. If you can't end early, and sometimes you can't, do not go over. It's disrespectful and it will start to make people think no matter how long you say that meeting is, they're in for at least another 30 minutes or they'll be super distracted, leave early. They just won't take it seriously. So be respectful of people's time, choose the minimum amount of time that you need, have an agenda, do whatever you can do that's outside of the meeting context are saved for things you really, really have to have.
And from a leadership perspective, one of the things that can be really sobering and helpful is to do the math on the amount of money that
Mm,
a particular meeting costs the firm, because that can really add up very quickly. And it's also not just the revenue that's lost, but it's also the work that isn't getting done that will have to be done at some other time that pushes a deadline off, et cetera, et cetera. So,
that's exactly right. We did that with one client because they were very meeting focused and it was like multiple senior leaders had to be in every meeting. And, we finally said, look, we're happy to do this. Like, if this is how you want to work, okay. But understand each of these meetings represents X number of hours of executive time on your end.
yeah.
We're not even counting our time, but this is how much these meetings are costing you as an organization. And that was very sobering. And we didn't have as many meetings with as many people after that. And the thing actually more got done.
And I think, too, part of the reason that meetings can find their way into frequency and number is that people put off making decisions until a meeting, and they use the meeting as the stick to get a decision made. Get everybody in a room and we're going to make a decision. And sometimes that works. Frequently it does not. So, look for other opportunities to make those decisions without feeling like a meeting is your only option.
And it might be wise to take a look at who is responsible for making decisions in your firm. Because what often happens is the reason a decision is punted to a meeting is because somebody doesn't want to be the person responsible for making the decision. So they put it to the group so that it's a group decision, except the group doesn't understand who has responsibility for it and they don't know if they're supposed to make it or not. So if you have somebody who's responsible for making decisions, that's the person that makes decisions and you don't need a meeting to do it. If you really are making everything by group fiat, then okay, like that's a culture, but you're going to be really slow getting anything done.
Walked around a bunch of things on this topic, but what do you think the
Hopefully not too aimlessly, but yeah.
how let's find the important takeaways that we think are needed here.
I think do a really hard look audit at your calendar and how many meetings are you going to and why. I will caveat that with if you're constantly doing new client meetings or BD meetings, like that's a whole other
Yeah.
separate category.
Yeah.
But if your calendar is consistently filled with internal meetings, project meetings, staff meetings, really look at where is your time going. And what of those meetings do you have to be at? Maybe you don't have to be at all of them. Maybe people are just inviting you because they feel like, well, you might want to go, or it's the polite thing to do. Say no to the ones you don't need to be at. If there are meetings that can be shorter, if there are meetings where the goals can be accomplished in another way, and for the meetings that you still do need to go to, ask for an agenda ahead of time. And when that meeting time is over, you leave.
I think those are all really good points. I might take it even to a more mercenary state,
Of course you would.
because I would say instill in the firm leadership that a fundamental question about meetings needs to be asked every so often. So whether that's quarterly or monthly or whatever the thing happens, if a particular recurring meeting needs to continue and if it's still serving a purpose. Because I think that's a really great way over time to cut ones that are just not serving a purpose any longer.
Yeah. I mean, the goal should be that at some point you are accomplishing the thing, or you have imparted the knowledge to the right people. The need for the meeting should dissipate over time for a particular project or a particular issue. It shouldn't be that you have meetings forever and ever about a particular issue. And if you want to have meetings, are not the same as team get togethers or team building
Yep.
events. Don't conflate those two things.
Nope.
Don't schedule an hour-long meeting because you want to talk for 10 minutes about work and have everybody chit chat for 50 minutes to build team unity. Schedule a team building event. Schedule something fun so that people start to understand too what meetings really should be used for. Well, good. I'm glad. Glad we totally solved that problem. No more problems with meetings.
All done.
Yes. So go erase your entire calendar and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.